So you're on the carnivore diet and you're experiencing some stomach issues. Well, lucky for you, in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down why this is the case. Most people think that the reason they're experiencing diarrhea or constipation on the carnivore diet is because they're having too much or too little fat. However, there are a number of other reasons you may be experiencing these things. First up in today's video, I'm going to break down why you're having diarrhea and give you 9 possible solutions to fix it. And then I'm going to break down why you're constipated and give you 3 possible ways to resolve it. Why do we get diarrhea on the carnivore diet? Well, there's 3 main reasons. The first is that your body's making an insufficient amount of bile. For fat to be absorbed, it requires something called bile. Now, bile is made in our liver, stored in our gallbladder, and then released into our intestines to break down fat. When you first start the carnivore diet, you're going to drastically increase the amount of fat you're eating. However, it takes time for your body to upregulate the amount of bile it makes. So what ends up happening is you're consuming too much fat for the bile to break down, and it results in loose stools. As well as the fact that your gut microbiome is going through a drastic change. If you were a carnivore your whole life and you switched to a vegan diet, you would have the same issues. When our gut microbiome goes through a drastic change, everything's just out of whack. All the bacteria and enzymes that are currently in our guts has to go somewhere, which again, this can cause loose stools. And then the final reason is that there's just a lot less bulking of your stool. And while this isn't a problem when you're only consuming meat and salt, but if you're still consuming things like coffee or artificial sweeteners, even if you are fine consuming them before carnivore, they may present a problem now due to the fact that there's just less matter in your stomach to absorb this stuff. And these things, they are laxatives. Coffee and sweeteners in some people do have laxative effects. Like I said, this third reason only applies to people who are still having things like coffee or artificial sweeteners. The first of the 9 ways you can resolve diarrhea is very straightforward. All you have to do is wait. For 90% of people, if you're experiencing diarrhea and you're within your first couple of weeks on the carnivore diet, the chances are you can change nothing, but in a few weeks' time, your body will have adapted and you'll no longer have this issue. So if you've just started the carnivore diet, when you watch this video, just keep all the other tips in mind, but you may not necessarily have to do anything. The next thing you might want to consider doing is eating less fat. Like I talked about earlier, your body requires bile to break this fat down, and at the start, the chances are your body hasn't had a chance to upregulate the amount it makes. So for some people, you may just be over-consuming fat. Cut the fat back a little bit and slowly over time, gradually increase your fat intake rather than just having massive increases at once. However, please remember you do need to consume a good amount of fat as it's very important for hormone function and just feeling good in general. The next thing you might want to consider is to consume less electrolytes. A lot of people when they go on the carnivore diet, they start consuming massive amounts of electrolyte supplements. You can get sufficient amounts of electrolytes in the meat you're eating as long as you're putting enough salt on your meat as well. Having a correct electrolyte balance in your body is very important. Too many electrolytes can be very toxic to your body. So if you're consuming way too many electrolytes, your body just does whatever it can to get rid of it. So often what will happen is you'll have loose stools as your body's simply just trying to get rid of the stuff. Another thing you might want to cut back on is the amount of hot rendered fat you're having. When fat is in a liquid state, it's much harder for our bodies to absorb, and especially at the start when you don't have much bile, it can just go straight through us. A lot of people find that even if they eat the same amount of fat, if they switch it from this hot rendered liquid fat to say like a tallow that's already hard, that their diarrhea just resolves itself. So that may be one thing you want to consider. I highly recommend if you're starting on the carnivore diet, you try not to have too much of this hot rendered fat and you opt for more of the fats that aren't in this liquid form such as tallow or even butter. The next reason is that you're actually not eating enough fat. Now, how do you know if this is you? Well, you'll be having very infrequent but loose stools. So what happens is some people that just don't eat enough fat and just everything becomes clogged up because you need the fat to lubricate your stools. And so what happens is after a while of just being completely clogged up, you've got more stuff coming through and your body just doesn't want the stuff inside of it anymore. So it just flushes it out and yeah, it just results in diarrhea. Another thing to consider is dairy. Some people are just intolerant to lactose. Now lactose is a FODMAP, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it basically means it's a type of carbohydrate that is one of the main causes of digestive issues in humans. When you are lactose intolerant, it means your body is not making enough of the enzyme lactase, which breaks down lactose. And like I mentioned at the start, maybe you weren't lactose intolerant for most of your life, or you didn't think you were, because maybe you only had a slight lactose intolerance, but because on a regular diet you had much more bulking of your stool, you could kind of hide it. However, now on carnivore, because you're eating the proper human diet of only meat, there's nothing to bulk up your stool, and as a result, lactose may be posing a problem to you. However, again, this is probably very rare, and for most people, you're not going to have to cut out your dairy. Hey guys, it's me again. I wanted to let you all know that I've written an ebook, which is a complete beginner's guide on the carnivore diet.
It's only 17 pages long and it covers everything you need to know. So whether you want to refresh your knowledge or you're a beginner who's looking to get onto the carnivore diet and doesn't know where to start, this one's for you. All you have to do is head down to the description of this video, click the top link, and I'll send it to you for free. And on top of that, I'll send you a couple emails each week with some bonus tips I have regarding the carnivore diet. And the best part is that there's no catch. It's literally all for free. So go down to the description to claim your free copy now. Anyway, back to the video. Now, the next thing you might want to consider is how much organ meat you're having. Now, the reason for this is very similar to electrolytes, like I talked about earlier. Your body wants all of its vitamins and minerals to be in sufficient amounts. And for most of these things, your body doesn't want too many of them. Now, liver is very high in vitamin A, and if you consume too much vitamin A, it's incredibly toxic for us. So our body will do whatever it can to get rid of this, and in some cases, this might be that it just passes it through you as quick as it possibly can and results in a loose stool. The next thing you might want to consider is how much water you're consuming, especially at mealtimes. When you drink too much water, it can literally just flush you out. A lot of people are under the assumption that the more water, the better. This is not the case. If you're thirsty, drink water. If you're not thirsty, you probably don't need it. The next thing you might want to consider is, are you really strict? As I talked about earlier, coffee and artificial sweeteners, as well as other things, can act as laxatives. When you are on a regular diet, there are a lot of things that you eat that just bulk up your stool and can mask these things. However, on carnivore, these can be a problem. So if you've been on carnivore for an extended period of time and you've tried all the other things that I've talked about in this video, it may be your coffee. Now, a lot of people who are having stomach issues on carnivore supplement with bile. And whilst I have seen comments of people talking about bile supplementation, there are a few things I want you to think about before you start consuming this stuff. The first is that when you have more bile, it means you're going to absorb more fat, which means you're going to be absorbing more energy. Now, a lot of people go on carnivore and one of their goals is weight loss. Do you want to be absorbing more of the energy, which gets stored as fat when you're trying to lose weight? I don't think so. As well as the fact that consuming bile from another species is just quite unnatural. The next thing we're going to talk about is constipation. A lot of people on carnivore think they're constipated, but they're actually not. To be constipated, you need to feel like you need to go to the bathroom, but you can't go. You can feel like your stomach's all full and that it just won't pass. When you eat only meat, there is just very little waste. Your body wants everything that it contains. It wants the nutrients, it wants the proteins, it wants the fat. When you eat plants, you have all these compounds that are just toxic to your body and it wants to get rid of them. Often people will go on the carnivore diet and they'll only go to the bathroom once every 5 days, once every 3 days, or something like that. This isn't constipation. If you don't feel like you need to go to the bathroom, you're not constipated. You just have less waste. All a stool is waste passing through your body. So for a lot of people who watch this video, you're not actually constipated. However, if you feel like you need to go to the bathroom, but you can't, and you just feel all blocked up, here is what's happening. You're either lacking fats, which provide lubrication, or you're lacking water, which prevents the stool from being dry and therefore being too firm. So let's talk about the 3 main things you can do to resolve constipation. The first is just to eat more fats. Like I said earlier, your body needs fat to lubricate the stool. So if you're not eating enough fat, everything's just going to be too still for it to pass through. So for the vast majority of people on carnivore, if you're truly constipated, you feel like you need to go, but you can't, increase the amount of fat you're eating and the chances are it will resolve itself. The next thing you might want to consider is the amount of electrolytes you're having. Electrolytes draw water into the intestines, which softens the stool up, as well as the fact that salt is responsible for your body storing enough water. So if you're not consuming enough salt, your body's just going to be dehydrated and therefore your stools are going to be too firm. Now, meat contains sufficient amounts of the majority of the electrolytes. However, for some people, the reason you may have constipation is because you're not putting enough salt on your meat. So if upping the amount of fat you're having doesn't work, the next thing you're going to want to do is increase the amount of salt you're having. And then the final thing you're doing is you might not be drinking enough water. Like I said at the start, your body needs water to prevent your stool from being too firm. So if the first 2 strategies don't work, try drinking a little bit more water. However, you don't want to go from drinking not enough water to way too much water, because when you drink too much water, it can deplete your electrolytes, which, as we just talked about, that can be another reason why you're constipated. Anyways, that concludes today's video. If you get value from these videos and you want to support the channel, consider becoming a member down below. Not only does it really help me out, but you also get a lot of exclusive benefits. During this video, I talked a lot about electrolytes. So if you're wondering how much electrolytes should I be consuming, I have a video which discusses this very topic. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.